All right, this next session I'd like to do for you is talking about elements of effective discipline. We understand that as a Christian school, we have an obligation before God, the influence that we've been given, to use that influence to help train the next generation of Christian leaders. And we want to help young people develop the internal discipline that they need to be able to be, at a most basic level, good citizens in their community, but at a higher level, to have the discipline to live for their Creator, to live for their Maker in a way that honors and glorifies Him. So discipline isn't a fun topic, but it's a needful topic, and it's an important topic to discuss in Christian education. I will make sure I right up front give credit where credit is due. Mr. Joshua Burks is the administrator at Pensacola Christian Academy, where the Abeka books are produced. He was actually my 7th grade teacher, so shout out to Mr. Burks. It was his first year teaching. I was in his 7th grade class, and that's what he got to start out his teaching career, and now the administrator of the school. And here's some notes that he gave me that I thought were just so good. I mean, this would have been 16 years ago. I got these notes and thought they were excellent. Want to share them with you. I'm not sure if I'll share them as well as he did, but hopefully they can still be a blessing since I've got the YouTube platform. So anyway, elements of effective discipline. And there are some key things to know. We'll give them in pairs because that's how he gave them to me. And the first element of effective discipline is training and restraining. Training and restraining. I want to focus on those two words here up front. The word training. In the Bible uses that word for parents specifically. In Proverbs chapter 22, it says, train up a child in the way he is old, and in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. And of course, we as Christian educators, our stance is that we're partnering with Christian parents. The Christian parent doesn't feel that homeschooling is the right fit for them. They're delegating the responsibility of education to us. And so while the child is at school, we're the ones educating. The parents are not there, so we then assume that responsibility in partnership with parents to train the child. But the word training, just as much as if you would train a dog, okay? Why are you training the dog? Is it so the dog can bring you great enjoyment? Well, admittedly, in some ways, yes. But largely it's for the dog's benefit. When you train a young child not to run out in the street, is it so it brings you some form of pleasure? No. Training is something we do for the child. And it's very important to have the mindset as we discipline students in our Christian schools that the focus of discipline is the child's well-being, the student's well-being. And it's important then that as we go into each day, as we go into a discipline situation, to ask God to help us forget ourselves. This discipline is not about me. It's not about helping me to feel better that this was done. It's not about helping my classroom to be more at peace. Is that a side benefit? Yes. Discipline, though, is done for the child. How can I help this child to grow and develop and become the young man or young lady she needs to be? And have that vision, even if you're teaching kindergartners, 4 or 5-year-olds, you're shaping their character more so than even I will have the chance to do as a high school teacher. Much of the character that is instilled in a young person is instilled by age 6. You have such a responsibility. Yes, you're teaching some academics. You're teaching the foundations of reading and of writing, of arithmetic. You're teaching those foundational elements. But as a Christian, you're teaching that young person proper behavior, a proper way to structure their life so that all the rest of their life becomes that much easier. We're trying to help the child be better prepared for one day adulthood. One day to be a good adult themselves, to be a good parent themselves, to be a good worker themselves, to be a good Christian. We're training that child. And so the discipline that we use in our Christian schools, and it varies by school, is done in such a way that it helps that child become the person that God intends them to be. I'm not trying to make little mini-me's. I'm not trying to make little clones. I'm not trying to make people who are good at robots in my classroom. But I am trying to make young people who are going to grow into what God wants them to be. The purpose of discipline is that child's welfare. Discipline is something we do for the child. It's not something we do to the child. Say that again. Discipline isn't something we do to the child. Discipline is something that we do for the child. And it's helpful if we think not in terms of consequences, though that's an inherent part of discipline, but think of it as discipline. Think of it as training. We're training their character. But not only are we training, we are also restraining. I think of Eli in the Bible. And the Bible says that Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, made themselves vile because he restrained them not. And God judged Eli because Eli did not restrain his sons. Now again, this is for a warning for parents primarily. Parents, I as a parent of 4 children, I have to restrain my children. They have a natural bent toward doing wrong. We at Christian schools, we believe in the sin nature that is inherited from parents. We believe there's a natural bent toward doing wrong, and we have to restrain that natural bent. And we're parents, first and foremost, are accountable for that. But remember, as a Christian educator, you're partnering with that parent. That parent is entrusting their child to you throughout the school day. It is then incumbent on you to act as the parent would act to restrain that child from doing wrong. You're accountable to God for how you discipline your students. And here's the wake-up call. Even as I was preparing this session and looking through the notes again, never be too busy to teach character. Never be too busy to teach character. And I still remember I was doing student teaching 16 years ago in a geometry class. And one of my students said something that was disrespectful and inappropriate. It was my last day of student teaching. And I'm ashamed to confess that I fell victim to you know what, it's my last day, I don't even care. And afterward, the Holy Spirit smote my heart. What are you doing? It's not about you. That disrespectful attitude is going to hurt her one day. I know it didn't really offend you that badly. I know you can get over it, but it's not about you. It's about her. And that disrespectful attitude may get her fired from a job one day, and you didn't take care of it. I did not do my job to restrain it. Effective discipline corrects deviant behavior to prevent future discipline problems. That's restraining. Training, how should you act? Restraining, don't act that way in the future. That's inappropriate behavior. And it's done for the betterment of the child. Training and restraining, both important elements of effective discipline. On a more of a school side front, especially for those who may be in administration or leadership in the school, a couple of elements: unity and consistency. Unity and consistency. Unity especially for those in administration. But also something as teachers we need to be mindful of as well. Discipline needs to be the same in every classroom, across the board. Now, the way that discipline is responded to may change from grade to grade. I won't give it attention to a first grader, okay? But what rules are enforced needs to be consistent across the board. Something can't be permissible in first grade, but it's not permissible in second. No, the same rules apply. This is how we conduct ourselves. Is there maybe more latitude, for instance? Our high school kids, as they're between classes, we don't walk them from class to class. Okay? They're free to talk in the hallway and be with each other in their lockers during those 5 minutes. But there are still rules that across the board, these are guidelines that our students follow. If you have a larger school where there's multiple first grade classes, extra important. Every first grade class has those same rules. You cannot be, from a teacher's perspective, well, I'm the fun teacher. Well, hold on now. Now you're going to hurt the ministry as a whole because students are going to look at other teachers with the side eye. They're going to wish they're in your classroom. I think you'll also find if you're trying to conduct yourself as the fun teacher, and again, I think my students have fun in my class, but if your objective is to be the fun teacher, you may end up having more trouble in your class in the long run, even if you start off the year with donuts and ice cream. Okay, so discipline needs to be the same in every class. In high school, this is especially important because students will go from my class to science, to history, to English, different teachers for every class. The rules have to be the same. There needs to be a unity amongst everything. The biggest thing here then is, from administration perspective, we need to make sure that we have what is expected of the teachers and what they should expect of their students very clearly outlined in a manual. From the teacher's point of view, we need to make sure we're following what's in the manual, okay? So the administration, make sure it's very clear to the teachers. This is what you must expect of your students. This is the discipline that must be maintained. And then as teachers, this is what they expect. This is what to be a good employee and a good servant of Christ in my ministry, this is what I must enforce. So that from classroom to classroom, from year to year, students know what's expected. And again, there's security in that for the student. They know this is the structure, this is what's around me, these are the walls that have been constructed to help me to function well in the school. Unity. Everyone's singing the same tune. At our school, in the high school, in the beginning of every single class on the first day of school, we read through these same expectations and discuss the same expectations. This is what we're expecting in our classroom. Every teacher has the exact same expectations. We make it clear to the students on the first day so they know exactly what those expectations are. And it also helps the students to know right up front, every teacher is singing the same tune. Every teacher conducts things the same way. That's very, very important in ministry. If you don't have a way of enforcing that right now, those in administration, you want to make sure you do something like that. But also, within the classroom, consistency of discipline. It's important that you respond the same way to each student. How do you do that? Well, first of all, I think of Ecclesiastes 8:11. It says, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Again, sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. I would say one of the best strategy tips for maintaining good discipline in your classroom is catch the first offender. You don't want to think that way on the first day of school. You want it to be fun, and your persona is all about, we're going to have a great year, this is going to be a good time, we're going to learn a lot this year, I'm looking forward to being your teacher. But at the same time, that very first offender needs to be caught and addressed. Now, on the first day of school, you're probably not detention or whatever your school's discipline is, but at least, that's not acceptable behavior. And the very first person you catch and you address it, you make sure everybody understands that's not acceptable. All right, that's not how we're going to behave in this class. And then you consistently catch everyone after that. I would also say consistency in response. Students, especially the older they get, are really into this. You respond one way to one student when they do this, and you respond another way to another student. Well, this student's late to class and they get a warning. That student's late to class and they get a demerit. Or they get a late slip, or whatever the penalty is. And there will become a resentment against you. Again, that's honestly fair. They should resent that because that's not consistent. You want to have consistency. Every student gets treated the same. Never ignore a discipline problem like I did when I was student teaching. Never ignore a discipline problem. You've got to address it. You've got to deal with it. And really, truly, especially young teachers, I would say seasoned teachers like myself as well, our prayer ought to be, Lord, would you help me to catch the first offender? Now, this kind of goes back to something I said in an earlier session about eye contact. If you're maintaining eye contact with students, you can see it in their eyes if something is amiss, right? If something is about to be amiss, or maybe something was going to be amiss, or maybe something is amiss, and you, while you were writing something on the board, so I would say eye contact helps to prevent that. But ask God to help you to catch the offender. Because again, not because I want absolute peace in my classroom, though I do, I want to make sure I have the chance to shape their character. I want a chance to make sure I'm helping them develop into who they are. I don't want them to become ingrained in a way of behavior that they get comfortable with that is not right. We want to be able to train and restrain consistently. Another pairing of words that Mr. Burks shared with me many years ago, command and control. Command and control. I think about God's command to parents in Deuteronomy chapter 6, where he commands parents, teach my laws, teach my commandments diligently to your children. Parents there are commanded specifically to teach God's laws to their children. Well, I think we can extrapolate it out as in general, the teaching responsibility, the only time that's really, it's the teaching then of pastors to their flock, to their congregation, and of parents to teach their children. Here at Grace Christian School, our stance is that the responsibility of education is incumbent upon parents. But parents have that God-given authority. God gives authority to parents to teach. Parents then pass that authority on to you to teach and to train and to discipline. And as Christian educators, it's incumbent upon us, while the students are with us, to act as the parents would have us act. In loco parentis, I think, is the Latin phrase for that. But we're acting in the position of the parent, and that means we are then accountable to teach God's laws, proper way of living, what would God have for that child in that classroom, which means if God gives authority to parents and parents give authority to us, my authority ultimately comes from God. It's a God-given authority, and we need to have that mindset. Sometimes as teachers, we buy into the modern culture, the anti-Christian culture, if you will, of, well, is it really my place? Like, who am I to judge? Is it really my place to say? Yes, it is. Yes, it absolutely is your place to say to that child who is just learning how to live and how to conduct himself. It's absolutely your place because God, through the parents, has given that responsibility to you. The parents are God's delegated authority to their children. You then have that authority delegated to you during the school day. Now, when that child is with his parents, you have no authority. The parents have the authority. But when that child is with you, that authority is then handed to you. You need to recognize that authority. But proper authority denies itself. Proper biblical authority does what's best for the other person, not what's best for you. God has all the authority in the world over us. And yet what did God do? He came to this earth as a man, gave up his life to save us. Proper authority does what's best, again, as we've said before, for the child. I keep pounding that point. Discipline is done for the child. So we take the command that God has given us seriously. We recognize we do have the authority and it's God-given. And so therefore we must use it. But again, we're always doing it for the child. But along with that command, in order to make sure we're doing it for the child, we must have control. And largely, control of ourselves. If we have control of ourselves, we can then have the control of the classroom through discipline. James chapter 3, verse 2, a teacher's worst nightmare. The Bible says, hey, don't try to be many masters. Don't seek to be a teacher because what does a teacher do all day? Talks all day long. And in many things we offend all. We have a tendency as humans to be offensive. And if any man offend not in word, the same's a perfect man. Well, I know I ain't perfect. You know what I'm going to do then? I'm going to end up offending somebody with my words. But I certainly don't want to. That's not my goal. We need to be very careful with our words. Guard your words. The Bible does say that we'll give account for every idle word that we speak. Make sure you guard your words. Thinking back over 15 years of teaching and some of the regret that I have in different moments where I used my words and why did I say that? I used words that were either hurtful, I used words perhaps that were harsh, I used words that were careless. This is hard for me. If you've watched any of my YouTube videos, you know this. I tend to be a sarcastic individual. Sarcastically humorous is my objective. In discipline, though, there's no place for sarcasm. And this is something that I still, after 15 years, no, I don't have it mastered yet. Avoid sarcasm in discipline. One of two results if you're sarcastic. Either you will be sarcastically hurtful, or your sarcasm will confuse the student. Either sarcasm in discipline will be hurtful, and you'll hurt the feelings of that student, and you'll wound their spirit. The Bible says a wounded spirit, who can bear? We never want to wound a child's spirit through sarcasm, and certainly not in sarcastic discipline. Or you'll confuse the student. The student will hear sarcasm, and as in my case, I usually use sarcasm to try to be humorous and make the class laugh and interject levity into the classroom. But, okay, is he actually serious, or like, is he not serious? Like, am I actually in trouble? Do I actually need to stop, or does he really not care? He's just making a joke. It can be confusing. Either way, preaching to myself here, don't use sarcasm in your discipline. Because again, why do I, in error sometimes, use sarcasm in discipline? Because it's my comfort zone. It makes me not feel as bad. Going back to the beginning, is discipline about me? No. Discipline's about the child. Don't do that which is comfortable for you. Do that which is best for the child. So be careful about sarcasm. And of course, we need to control three key things. I think if we remain in control of three things, it'll really help with discipline. Number one, be in control of your reactions. Be in control of your reactions. Really, truly, discipline should not be a reaction. It should be the working of a plan. You go into the classroom, and this is the point of in-service sessions at the beginning of the school year, to make sure that everybody in the department, high school, elementary, whatever, they have their plan. Whether it's a tally system, whether it's red sad faces, yellow okay faces, and green happy faces, whatever discipline, detentions, demerits, whatever discipline system your school uses, know what the plan is so that when a student crosses a line, you're not blindsided by it. You're not reacting in frustration. You're not reacting in anger. You're not reacting in... You already know what the plan is. When this behavior occurs, this is what's going to be dealt with. Now, I would strongly urge you to have a plan, particularly in something like the high school. So I guess I'm speaking more to high school people here, where a discipline situation arises, to have a plan like we use here at Grace Christian School, and that is to say, see me after class. Firmly, sternly, but not angrily. And I, as the high school supervisor, instill that in my teachers at the beginning of the year. That's the response. Something happens that's not appropriate in your classroom. The correct response is, see me after class. In the high school classroom, number one, it's to allow academics to continue. We have so much academic material we want to teach and cover and review and drill and make sure students learn and understand and master so they can be prepared for college at the next level. I don't have time to deal with that situation right now. But also, if I deal with it right away, I may deal with it in the flesh. It gives me a chance to take a step back and talk to them more quietly, soberly, after class, without embarrassing them in front of everyone. Now, elementary teachers, it's going to be a little bit different for you. You don't have a class that ends in 50 minutes where everyone's going to be able to leave the room and the next group's going to get ready to come in. So you may have to say, go wait in the hallway. And the student goes and waits in the hallway. Or maybe it's a small thing, and you're just going to have to calmly say whatever your plan is, whether it's sentences that you assign time at recess, tallies, whatever the discipline is. Okay. Again, if it's a more serious thing, I do encourage, step out in the hallway. I'll be there in a moment. Calmly, quietly, sternly, firmly, maybe striking a little fear in the child. But it gives you a chance to breathe before you go out there and address it. I would always encourage you, don't address in front of the class. You look reactive, and that can be a problem. Have a plan going in, is what I'm saying. Have a plan, know what you're going to do in each situation. If you're not sure about a situation, something just nuts comes up. Because let's be real, we work with children. Children come up with crazy things we've never thought of before. 15 years of teaching, and I still will occasionally see something, I've never seen that before, okay? Technology does not help. The change of technology certainly brings new challenges, but sometimes it's, what do I do? Go see your supervisor, see your administrator, go to the leadership that's above you, and make sure you get some guidance there. Also, be in control of the instructional environment. This really will preclude discipline problems. You will avoid discipline problems if you're in control of the educational environment in your classroom. If you're keeping the pace moving at your pace, not slowing it down for every little thing the child has. You don't have to take every single question when a child raises their hand, particularly, you know the child, you know the look on their face. If they're trying to be the funny guy, motion for the hand down, or let's take that question a little bit later, and then just keep the class moving. You be in control of that classroom environment. You keep the instructional pace moving. That alone will largely prevent discipline problems. I elaborated that a little bit more in another session. But also be in control of this, and this is hard. This is really hard for me. And I don't think I'm rare in this. I think most of you, if you're watching, I think you're probably in the same boat. You want to please people. You want people to like you. You want the students to love you. You want parents to love and appreciate you. It means a lot to you when a parent says, man, you're such a great teacher. Oh, I appreciate so much what you do for my child. My child just loves your class. I'm so thankful you're my child's teacher. You love hearing that. You soak it up. It's like, more, go on. I'll give you 30 minutes to stop talking this way. You know, whatever, right? We like that. I love that, okay? Maybe it makes me arrogant. I don't know. But sometimes we fear the lack of student affection. Maybe we fear a parent's response. And we must be in control of that emotion. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. If we're filled with the power of the Holy Spirit, if we have love for our students as we should, if we've got a sound mind and we're sticking to our plan, then we will discipline in a way that is effective for that child. Versus, well, I really don't want to deal with the parents, so I probably shouldn't address this. Now, I will say, as a strategy tip, okay, if you're nervous about how's the parent going to respond, get your administrator, your principal, your supervisor, get someone in on the conversation. Okay, make sure other people are aware of what's going on. Maybe have another person sit in that meeting with you when you talk to the parent. But you cannot not discipline because you're afraid of how a student may respond. Maybe it's the child that, I mean, you love them all, but maybe there's your heart really goes out to that child. Maybe they have a difficult home life or whatever, and your heart just really goes out to that child. Like, I don't really want to discipline because I love that child so much. Careful, if you love that child so much, you'll discipline them because you want to help them. So don't put student affection. Now, after you discipline that child, may that child, in their immaturity, dislike you for a little while. Very possible. I still remember my 7th grade teacher, Sarah Weaver. She was a fantastic English teacher. Oh my goodness, I did not appreciate her enough as a 7th grade boy. But she was strict. I mean, she towed the line in that classroom. You towed the line in her classroom. And I spoke out in class one day, and I got a detention. And other teachers had maybe been a little bit more lenient. Maybe they shouldn't have been, but she was not. And in that moment, she was not my favorite teacher. I did not. But you know what? By the time I graduated, and I had her again in 10th grade, and I had her again in 12th grade for English, man, I loved her. She was fantastic. She was such a good English teacher. Even my senior year, there was something that I tried to get away with something that I shouldn't have tried to get away with, and she caught me on it, and she made me do it right. But I so much appreciated her as I got more mature. Don't allow the temporary immaturity of a student to cause them, oh, they might not like me as much. You're doing this for the child, not for you. It's not about what makes you feel good. Yes, it makes you feel good when students say, I love your class, Mr. Desk. You're such a... Yes, I love that. But I must not fear discipline because of that. I need to be in control of that. So make sure you're in control of your reactions. Really, make sure you have a plan going into the situation. Be in control of your instructional environment. Be in control of your fears. Don't allow fears to control you. 6 quick tips that Mr. Burks shared for effective discipline that I want to share with you as well. Number 1, as a teacher, learn the school's policies and relate to them. Learn the school's policies and relate to them. As you talk with parents, never say, they have this policy, meaning the administration, or, well, I'm just doing what they said to do. No. This is what we do. Here at the school, this is how we handle things. If every teacher is using words like we and us, as opposed to they and them, relate to your school's policies, be a part of that team. Don't make yourself and the administration separate because then they cannot have your back. It will help you so much in relating to parents or even relating to students. Well, we have a policy. This is not how you behave. This is our policy at Grace Christian School. You can't do this. Not, well, they said I had to give a demerit for this, or they said you were supposed to. No, we, us. Learn your school's policies and relate to them. Number 2, visualize yourself in calm control. As you start the school year especially, don't go into it panicking about how you're going to react. Get a mental picture of, I am in calm control of my classroom. I'm going to be, with the Lord's help, in calm control of my classroom. Have a plan by which you're going to have that. Don't show up on that first day willy-nilly. We'll see what happens this year. Oh, it's another bad class. Why do I have bad classes 7 years in a row? They were good for everybody else. Maybe you need a plan. Visualize yourself in calm control. Discipline is the working of a plan so that you're not constantly reacting. I think number 3 is a good tip as well. Remain professional at all times. Your students don't need you to be their friend. They need an authority in their life. They have friends. Now, you may find that after the child graduates or years down the road after the child's out of your class, that they become your friend. But in that moment, you're not there to be their friend. They don't need you to be their friend. They need an authority who's going to train and restrain them, who's going to guide them in the right way. So be professional. Conduct yourself professionally. dress professionally. I think that's something that's fading from our culture, but it will help you in your classroom, particularly if you have a challenging class. Dress up a little bit. When my wife, she teaches Sunday school to 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And usually she's the helper, but every few weeks she actually teaches the lesson. And she will wear what she calls her power pearls. She feels professional when she's wearing a pearl necklace. She didn't come up with the term power pearls. Her instructor in college shared that tip with her, and she's found it to be true. When she's wearing the pearl necklace, she feels more put together. Get your hair fixed nice. Dress a little bit sharper. Maybe, even ladies, you might wear a suit coat. You know, one of those nice ladies, but you just look professional, and the way you dress really does affect the way you act. It's why at Grace Christian School we have students wear a uniform. It's why at many Christian schools around the country, if they don't have a uniform, they have a dress code. They have a hair code. It just helps you to feel professional. If you're rolling out of school in your pajamas and coming to school in your pajamas, you as a student wouldn't feel professional. Well, you as a teacher, dress professionally. Dress above what the students are dressing like. If they're required to come in polo and khakis, you better be in a button-down dress shirt. You may notice in my videos, I always wear a tie. Some of our other male teachers, they always wear a jacket and a button-down shirt. Still looks sharp. It looks professional. Have yourself dressing professional, carrying yourself professionally. Feel like the professional in your classroom. It'll help students as they look at you, they look at your demeanor, they look at your dress, to have that respect that's just inherent with the person who's dressed the nicest in the room, who carries themselves that way. Number 4, set and keep your policies. Now, your school should outline the policies for you that you're supposed to enforce. We mentioned that earlier. But set those policies. Make sure the students in your classroom know what those policies are. Establish them. I told you at the beginning of the year, every one of our teachers, first day of school, here's the guidelines for my classroom. Here's what I expect from you as far as behavior in my classroom. We set them, and then we keep them. Notice, by the way, I didn't say set and keep the rules. That's such an ugly word that our human nature hates. Rules? Call them policies. It's our policy here at the school. This is our policy. This is how we do things. Have policies. I'm sure you've heard this phrase before. A policy not worth enforcing is not worth having. If you're not going to enforce a policy, don't have it in the first place. How do you enforce policies? I said it once before. I'll say it again. Catch the first offender. If that first person gets away with it, everyone else who sees it now knows he's not really serious. She's not really serious when she says not to do this. Enforce that policy. Catch the first offender. It's so much harder 2 months into the year to go back and like, oh, okay, now, this is our policy now. This is what we're for real this time. You've got to start off the year that way. And again, not in an oppressive way, but just in a very firm, clear way, enforcing what's happening. Part of that, too, you have to learn to see what's happening in your classroom. You cannot be tied to your notes. Your eyes have to be up. You have to be making eye contact. This is important for so many more reasons besides discipline, but it's important for discipline as well. Now, this is challenging in the elementary classroom. You're doing a reading circle. You're focused on the 5, 6, maybe 7 kids around you, but you have to be able to glance up around the room and see. Here's what students will typically do. Before they do something, they will almost always look at you to see if you're watching. Catch that, and when you see them glancing over at you, get back to work. Or if you see a student kind of glance, the more longer you'll teach, you'll know the look. But as you see that particular look, pardon the interruption, as you see that particular look, use a look of your own to correct it. But watch what's happening. Don't get so focused on material and teaching this and writing this that you never actually look up. Maintain good eye contact. Number 5, teach your students to respond properly to correction. One of the important things to do as you discipline is to encourage the student, hey, you made a mistake. There are consequences. Here's the consequence. Don't let this ruin your day. Okay? Get it right with the Lord. You've already told me you're sorry. Now do better. It's okay. Grow from this. Let this make you better. Remember, you're training their character. And their whole life, the whole life of this child is going to be spent, unfortunately, being corrected. I've been teaching 15 years. I still occasionally have to be corrected by my authority. The Holy Spirit for sure has to correct me a bunch. There's a proper way to respond to that. It's with a tender heart. It's with a, I'm sorry, an apologetic, I'm going to try to do better. You don't let it be, you can't let it beat you down, and you can't stiffen the neck. And so address that as you're disciplining. Teach your students to respond properly to that correction. And tip number 6, recognize students who are doing right. Applaud the students who are doing well. Maybe with a good note that gets sent home, or a phone call to a parent, or a text, or an email. Some way, somehow, communicate in a way that the parent knows, or the child knows, you recognize that I'm doing well. Because in many instances, the kids just want that recognition. And if they get it, that'll be an incentive to them to continue doing well. They want to know that they're pleasing you in many instances. So recognize those who are. And it's important to specify because as humans, we so often focus on the negative. Right? I've heard for every positive thought we have 7 negative thoughts. I don't know how true that is or isn't. I've never done the math. But, I know math teacher hasn't done the math. But I do know this. I tend to focus on the negative. I tend to focus on this student misbehaved. That student wasn't working as hard as he should. That student was being distracted. As opposed to, man, this student's doing so well. This student's doing so great. Man, I'm so proud of this student. Watch for students who are doing well and recognize them. To their parents, ideally, but maybe even to them. Hey, thank you for being such a good worker. You're doing a great job in my class. Thank you for that. And I think if we praise the students who are doing well, that'll go a long way in helping our classroom to have good discipline. Remember, it's for the child, not to the child. It's not for you to have a good, smooth year. That's just a side benefit. Our focus needs to be, how do I help these young people in my Christian school classroom to become all that God wants them to be? Hope this is a help to you as you go throughout your year.